It's time for the patron screen! It's thanks to these guys here that this video was able to happen, but do you know what else they made happen? My American FurCon debut! That's right, I have finally confirmed it. MFF this December, November, I am going to be there and I'm going to give every single patron the biggest hug they have ever gotten. But as always, thanks for watching this screen without skipping it. You are the best, you are a legend, I love ya. Now sit back and enjoy the video.
G'day and welcome to this week's Bottle episode. Today I'm going to be talking about everything fursuit heads, as a continuation from the Bottle episode last week, which is everything except heads. Heads are the hardest part of a fursuit to build and probably the most important because it's the first thing everyone looks at, and without a head it's not really fursuiting anymore. So when buying or making a fursuit, you need to think very carefully about the type of head that you want. Each one has its own pros and cons that will determine whether you want to go for something that's a bit more comfortable and you can wear for longer, or if you want to just look amazing. I'm going to go into base materials first, then I'm going to talk about different kinds of eyes, and then any other details that have a lot of influence. One of the age-old fursuit head building materials is canvas mesh. So you use strips to get the basic shape down, and then you pad it out with either some more mesh or even some foam, or you just use like flat sheets of mesh to sort of warp it into the shape you're after. It's not something you really see often these days with so many new techniques making it pretty much obsolete, but there are still a lot of heads out there that are built this way, so it is worth mentioning in this video. It was very popular back in the day because not only was mesh a really cheap and easy to get material, there was also a really good matrices tutorial there as well, so a lot of newbie buyers and newbie makers were attracted to this method. It's also extremely lightweight. Like, I've played with a few other people's heads that were built this way and like, I feel like it's gonna float away. But I've also heard people say that if you use too much, it becomes a really heavy head, so not the most consistent material ever. However, the main reason it's become so obsolete is just it's so stupidly difficult to work with. You can't make any detailed shapes, it doesn't take well to hot glue, it's brittle. Like, mesh controls you more than you control it. It also isn't future-proof in the slightest. I've heard a lot of people say that their head only lasted a few years before the mesh was yellow and brittle and just too old and fragile to wear anymore. Like, this stuff literally snaps. Actually, a friend of mine, he got punched in the face while he was wearing his mesh head that was already over 5 years old, and the mesh just shattered. Now, not only is that really dangerous, the shards are actually really sharp, so do watch out there, but that head now has a perpetually caved in cheek. It's all flat and droopy, and the head isn't symmetrical anymore. If it was foam, it would have just like, you know, sprung back out, but mesh kind of just does what it wants, which is not usually the same as what you want. Most people originally opted to the mesh method because back then that was really all they had, but nowadays upholstery foam is so much easier to get, and you can even just buy bases from other people online, so this method has really dwindled from the scene now. Oh, just while we're on the topic of mesh, I want to mention a new mesh material that some makers have been playing with called Varaform. Varaform is a thermoplastic mesh, meaning when you heat it up, it's soft and malleable like a cloth, but when it cools down, it stays in its shape. I've been watching Kazplay experiment with this type of material, and the results have been really interesting and exciting. The pros are it's extremely lightweight, and with all those holes, the ventilation is amazing. However, the downsides are there's a fair bit of a learning curve to get the technique right, and you can't set anything solid on the base because it's quite flexible when it's set. So if you set something hard on there, and then you squish the head, the hard thing cracks and breaks. If you want to learn more or even give it a go yourself, I highly recommend giving Kazplay's head build a look. It's in the description. Alright, next head base type. Let's do the one that most people probably know, carved foam. Definitely the most popular method. Most heads you come across are going to be built this way. Like, my head. My head was built this way. Yeah! And the reason for this is all the pros. There's a fair few. For starters, you can get really detailed with the shaping of it. Like, there isn't a whole lot you can't do. You're only limited to what your skill level is. And to wear, it is ridiculously comfortable. It's like wearing a pillow. Any small knocks and bumps, you don't really feel anything. Plus, as foam isn't a solid material, the air can flow through a lot better and you get a lot nicer ventilation. Foam is generally pretty lightweight as well. Like, it'll get heavier as you make bigger heads and have lots of extras like horns and big ears and things, but on its own, it's a lightweight material. Speaking of bigger heads, that's one con with foam as well. Your heads will usually be on the larger side. How big or small depends on the maker. Like, I've seen some makers do some pretty amazing stuff with foam, but if you wanted to say like do a 2-scale realistic head, foam won't really be able to do that. One sort of arc from carved foam is expanding foam. So this one you can't carve from scratch yourself, rather you make a mold, fill it with expanding foam, wait for it to set, take it out, carve it so it's not, solid anymore. You can actually put it on, and then you've got a base ready to be furred. So the hardest part here is you have to make a mold, but there are far too many ways to do that, and I do not have time to go into them all in this video, so just Google mold making. But once that's done, it is a huge time saver. Like, you can carve and add and change the foam as you need to for each head, but the hard work is already done. Now, one thing that happens here with expanding foam heads that are all from the same mold is they're gonna start looking very similar, or samey face as people like to call it. Now, this can be a pro or a con depending on what you want. So like, if you want your fursuit head to be 100% unique, it's a con. But if you're a fursuit maker looking to streamline your building process, or if you really like the style of the fursuit maker you've chosen, it's a pro. And then the other type of fursuit base that you also have to cast, and most people probably would have heard of, is a resin base. Resin is a castable, solid, plastic type material that is really nice and sturdy and strong. Because of the same mold making process you have to do as the expanding foam head, not many people actually make resin bases. They'll usually rather buy one from a supplier. So these bases are the go-to for realistic suits because of their nice small size. Like, realistic suits look that much better when they are proportionate. Resin bases also have the most effective moving jaws because they're strong enough to support an actual bolted hinge. However, resin isn't invincible. Like, with a big enough impact, say like a drop on concrete, the resin will crack and break, and that will make your head unwearable. You've got to get the fur completely stripped off your head, the base glued back together, or even the base replaced entirely. Like, not a fun time. And as resin is a solid material, so air can't flow through it, resin heads get very hot and stuffy extremely quickly. This can be counteracted with a fan in the muzzle, but it is still stuffier than a foam head. Resin heads can also be very weighty. Like, it's not too bad, but some of the more extravagant heads get insane. Like, Kiba used to have this warhorse suit, and I've tried it on before, and that head is solid, thick, multiple layers of resin. Like, I can't wear that head for more than 20 minutes without getting a sore neck and a headache. Before I go into the next base type, I want to go into moving jaws a little bit more. So a moving jaw is essentially a jaw that moves as your real one does, giving you the illusion of talking, or you can open it for some really cute expressions. Now, as I said before, resin is definitely the best base type for moving jaws as they're the easiest to make and they're also the most sensitive, so they're ideal to get that kind of talking illusion. And foam base heads can have moving jaws, but they're a lot harder to find because they're a lot harder to pull off and usually is pretty limited to just being opened. Foam moving jaws will vary a lot from maker to maker. Like, some got the talking down perfectly, some will only open a little bit. If you open your mouth as wide as it will go. Now, the pros of a moving jaw is, of course, it looks cool, and if it's sensitive enough, you can talk in suit without breaking the magic. And if it opens wide enough, you can eat and drink through it. Like, being able to drink without taking your head off is a godsend. But these heads can also get a little bit stuffier because when your mouth is closed, your suit's mouth is closed, and less air is getting through. Alright, one more base type to cover. Now, this last one is relatively new, but it is taking the fursuit making world by storm. I give you 3D printed bases. Lighter than resin, easier to make than resin, and better airflow than resin. That's why 3D printed heads have so many holes in them, by the way. It is for airflow and makes it lighter too. They're also really easy to change up because you just change the model digitally and then print it. So like, add a clip for a fan, you can change the size of the eyes, you can change the snoot. Like, there is so much you can do without having to make a new mold each time. Like you guys know Sparky can do, all her latest heads are 3D printed bases. How cool is that? The only real big con here with these is the setup. Like, a decent and big enough 3D printer is still pretty pricey these days, and there is a lot to learn about them. And from a wearer's perspective, it's kind of like resin, how it can snap and break with a big enough impact. Like, not as badly, but it's still a possibility. Now, there are a few other kinds of bases out there, but they're all really maker-specific niches that can kind of fit into all these categories anyway. Like, for example, Bycats4Cats. They build their heads on martial arts helmets and then build up the face with foam. So these heads are so stupidly solid because of this. Like, if I was on a motorbike wearing Zac and I fell off, I'd be fine. There's also kimono-style heads that so many people commented on the last video saying, oh, you forgot kimono heads. I said heads were the next video, did I not? Anyway, kimono can be done on foam or resin, but they heat up like crazy because of their tiny mouth and the plastic covered eyes. And I think that's a good segue into different types of eyes. Eyes can make or break a suit, so I feel it's equally important to talk about these in detail. So let's start with those kimono style eyes. Now, I'm not sure what their official name is because I see it on non-kimono suits as well, so let's just go with anime eyes. These eyes are usually printed on glossy photo paper and then they put a clear dome or sheet of vinyl on top, and that's what gives them that clear, shiny anime kind of look, which looks insanely pretty. It really brings your eyes to life. However, these eyes are notorious for fogging up. Muggy hot inside plus cool outside equals moisture buildup, which equals you unable to see. It can be fixed by having a little vent hole somewhere on the eye cover, but even that isn't enough sometimes. And as I said before, because you've got a cover on, you've got less ventilation. Like, eyes in a fursuit are one of the best places to get ventilation from. So you can't see, you can't breathe, but at least you look really cute while you're dying. But the normal go-to eye style for fursuits is 3D eyes, like my eyes. No matter where I put my head, they're always looking at you, always watching. This is just an optical illusion that is made by building the eyes slightly concaved into the head. So, biggest pro, it's cool. Like, you can't deny this is awesome. Or, okay, maybe creepy. Yeah, that's a con. It can be creepy, especially to normies. But when people take photos of you, you are always looking at the camera, no matter where they took the photo from. Like, you can pull off so many different angles and expressions, it's so cool. Just make sure you have good lighting, because as the eyes go inwards, lack of lighting turns them into shadows rather than eyes, and that's creepy. You also sacrifice a little bit of peripheral vision when it comes to 3D eyes, like how much varies from maker to maker, but there's definitely a difference. Then of course, you've got the classic 2D eyes. The thing I love the most about 2D eyes is people know what you're looking at. You can actually look in a specific direction. Because when you have a fursuit head on, you can only see what's directly in front of you, and 2D eyes can only look forward, so you can use that in your performing and your photography. The vision is also better as they're a little bit closer to your eyes in the outside world. And as for makers, they are a lot easier to make than 2D eyes. 2D eyes will always look boss. Most people pick between 2D and 3D eyes by just which style they look better. Like, if you want some examples of really good 2D eyes, have a look at Jill costumes, Autumn Fallings, and Mixed Candy, just to see what you can really do with 2D eyes. And then a type of 2D eye is the squinty eyes, like my Niho. Squinty eyes have really only come into the fursuit trend scene recently, but oh, it's so cute. It's something really unique and different from the normal types of fursuit eyes, but as you can probably guess, the vision is just abysmal. Like, you are literally as blind as your character looks. Your peripherals are at least pretty good, but it's like constantly peeking out of a mailbox. And the last type of eyes are resin or glass eyes. You know, the really cool domed ones that also have a 3D effect to them, which is a massive pro here. They are ridiculously pretty and expressive, but I bet you're wondering how people see out of them. Well, unfortunately, the vision is the biggest con of these, because you can't actually see through the eyes themselves. Your only choice is to have vision through your character's tear ducts, which are usually very small, especially on realistic suits, but this is the only way to have realistic looking eyes. Alright, now let's go into overall head styles. The most common you're going to see is toony. Cartoony, unrealistic characters that look like they have jumped right out of the TV. People often opt for toony because there are no limitations at all. If you can think it and your wallet will allow it, you can do it. Especially when it comes to expressions as well. There are so many different expressions you can achieve on a toony suit. Expressions! Toony suits are also the most well received by the public as they are adorable. Not many people are going to be able to resist giving you a big hug. Then there is semi-toony. Now, semi-toony is pretty hard to define. Pretty much anything that isn't full-on realistic or toony is going to go in this category. Like, I feel my Adezu head is a semi-toony. Semi-toony can also use the really cool glass resin eyes and have better vision because you don't have to use realistic proportions. So if you want to have a bit more of a chill looking suit but don't really want to have to follow realistic standards, then semi-toony is your best bet. Next, of course, there is realistic suits. These are suits that try their absolute hardest to look like something that could actually exist in the real world, and it's standing there in front of you, breathing and being real. Which, when achieved, is awe-striking. It's incredible. It's a work of art, jaws dropping and bouncing on the floor. But that's the biggest con. They take a lot of work. You've got airbrushing, you have to use really nice, expensive furs. You need a heck of a lot of skills, and that makes them really expensive to commission as well. And while you and I will absolutely appreciate how incredible it looks, young children usually don't. Unfortunately for them, it steps over the line into scary territory. Now, I'm not saying don't take a realistic suit in public, just be aware you might not be as popular as the really cute toony unicorn doing backflips. And lastly, kimono style, which is Japan-inspired suits. Or in most cases, they're actually made in Japan by Japanese makers. Kimono style suits are so unique, I have to give them their own category. Like, technically it's a type of toony, but there is such a huge demand for kimono style specifically. This is because kimono styles are usually very expensive, because to pull them off well, it takes a lot of time, a lot of practice. They also usually include a lot of details, like really detailed hairstyles, detailed markings, so I hope you're ready to fork out some serious dollars. And don't forget what I said before, because of the covered eyes and the tiny Japanese mouth, the ventilation in these is horrendous. But of course, the trade-off of all this is you look adorable and like you literally just jumped out of an anime. It's such a unique, cool look. And there you have it, all the different kinds of head things. So You can work out what you want to make or what you want to buy. Don't forget to watch the previous episode as well if you haven't already. There is a lot of really important stuff in there too. Let me know in the comments if there's anything I missed or something you want to talk about, or you just want to see how my day's going, or it's your birthday. Just leave me comments. I like comments. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. See ya!